Guys, I'm super excited. I'm here in the lab, in the Biofile lab with Allison Cutland. She's the founder of... She's the founder of Biofile. See?
Yes.
These are her babies.
And here's the outer packaging.
Yes. So Biofile, I'll let you talk about it, but I'm super excited about it. It's super innovative. It's fermented skincare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is skincare that is almost fully biofermented. It's advanced skincare. It nourishes the microbiome on in. There are 3 products. The backbone of every formula are our biotic broths, what we call our biotic broths, and those are medicinal plant extracts fermented with probiotic bacteria. So we build that's the backbone of the formula, and we add a bunch of actives to it and really nothing else. It's broth plus actives. So it's highly active, it penetrates deeply. It's nice, right?
It goes on the neck.
And yeah, and it's a simple regimen. It's the essence. It's like a toning essence with polyhydroxy acids. It's got our root biotic broth, which is licorice, burdock, and ginger root. Brightens, hydrates, calms the skin. And then the skin food, the piece de resistance, is the BioShroom serum. And that is 3 adaptogenic mushrooms, chaga, reishi, and tremella.
This stuff is amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing.
I love this. This is like your skin food. It's got tons of vitamins and it's super concentrated, really hydrating. And as we talk a little bit more about skin biology, we can learn about where ingredients go.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
And then the third ingredient, last but not least, is an oil. And this is made with fermented green tea seed oil, a bunch of other plant oils, and oil-soluble vitamins, and a barrier sort of reinforcing ingredient. So that's the lineup.
I love this collection.
Thank you.
So we wanted to talk today, we wanted to do our first in a series, I guess, of shoots and conversations straight from the lab here at Biofile. And, we just wanted to kind of kick it off with a kind of a skincare or a skin 101 and talk a bit about the skin layers and what penetration is and why penetration is important and how not everything is intended to penetrate and why. So do you want to just, Allison, take us through like what the skin layers are called and how the skin is structured?
Sure. So this is the first time we're trying this. So we've put a little whiteboard back here, which might work to draw on, but we also have a little drawing here, which might be helpful. So we're just gonna wing it and see what works. I'm gonna start with this. So, because this is colored and very pretty. This is a very detailed view of what the skin looks like. And I'll just start by saying, you can tell these big things are hairs.
Not on my skin.
There are 3 main layers to the skin. We've got your epidermis, which is this layer right here.
Yep.
And then you've got your dermis, which is this.
So is this top layer is also called the stratum corneum?
That's correct. We'll go through that in a sec.
Okay.
But so this is the epidermis, this is the dermis, and this is the hypodermis.
Ooh, that looks crazy.
Which is all fat cells. So let's go back up to the epidermis. Mm-hmm. This is where a lot of things are happening in skincare. The epidermis is composed of 4 to 5 layers, and the top layer is called the stratum corneum.
Oh, got it. Okay.
And that's what you're seeing right up here. These don't have any nuclei in them. These are really your first line of protection of the skin. It's full of fatty acids and ceramides and keratinized cells. Moving down, you've got the stratum granulosum. You can kind of see it here. It's a little bit darker right here. Mm-hmm. And this is actually, these are cells that have been highly keratinized. And what they do is they dump that keratin out, and that becomes the stratum corneum.
Got it. So it rises up.
Exactly.
Okay.
Those are full of lipid granules and things like that. And that's sort of this cement that keeps the skin waterproof for most.
Oh, right. Of course. It keeps us from drowning.
Exactly. Underneath that is the stratum I already said granulosum. This is the stratum spinosum right there. And those are spiny layers. Those are making cell communication, sort of connections in between cells.
Oh, wow. So when we talk about cell communicating peptides?
We'll talk about that.
Okay.
That's on a larger level.
Not jumping the gun.
I love it.
Yep.
And then under that is the basal layer, and that's right here. This is where
This wavy piece?
Yep. And this is where cells get born. This is the nursery of the epidermis.
That's
and this
super cool.
is where you hear about stem cells and things like that. This is where stem cells are generated, and they give rise. So basically the way that this works, everything is born here, and it starts to develop and mature, and it goes through the full cycle, so it moves upward.
Yep.
Incidentally, melanocytes are also here.
Ah.
Yeah, so...
That's where hyperpigmentation begins?
It does, but it's also where your essential skin protection happens. So remember that all of those, melanocytes are also a protecting mechanism. So this is really where it's protecting the deeper portions of the skin. This is the dermis. And you want to go into the dermis?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So the dermis there are two parts of the dermis, that this sort of upper part of the dermis, the papillary. I had to refresh my memory here. And then the reticular dermis is down here. So the papillary dermis, first of all, you can see it's full of vasculature. These are veins and arteries and things like that. And so that's really important. So we can think about, when you take things internally. So, things can come to the skin surface. This is how they come, and they can also go down, right?
Right.
But, so this is also really important to see that our vasculature is widely through this section.
Yeah.
This is also where your collagen, your elastin, your hyaluronic acid is, and all that good stuff. This is the structure of the skin. This is like the scaffolding and the soft kind of cushy part of the skin. This is what we're really targeting a lot.
This is what degrades as you grow older, right?
Exactly.
So I'd imagine this becomes thinner.
Yeah. In fact, this sort of wavy basement membrane, this sort of wavy thing, that actually flattens out as you get older.
Oh, right.
So it's the collagen and the hyaluronic acid down here and the elastin that weakens, and that kind of flattens this out, and you're going to get, and that's kind of, we see that on the surface with
sagging on the surface,
sagging
and
wrinkles,
the folds that turn into wrinkles at the surface, right? Because this buckles.
Things, yeah.
Oh, exactly. That's so fascinating.
Exactly. And so as you move further down, we actually have a denser layer of collagen down here. You can't really see it, but there's more structural elements as we go down, and then you get into this area, which is the fatty layer. Called subcutaneous or the hypodermis. Okay. And a lot of, we really don't talk about this too much. This is really essential for the skin to keep us warm, to keep us supported, all of these things. So that's the layer on the bottom, and that actually holds everything else up.
So that's fascinating. So what really stood out for me is when you said that the hyaluronic acid is in here. So let's talk a little bit about penetration, right? So we've had this conversation, Allison and I have had this conversation about ingredients and whether they penetrate or don't penetrate. And she said something to me that I actually wrote down, and I quote, and she said, the thing about penetration is that not everything should be penetrating and not everything needs to penetrate. So when we talk about hyaluronic acid, when we apply hyaluronic acid to the surface of our skin, obviously it's not seeping down into this area where the hyaluronic acid is it?
This is a really interesting case, Carmine.
Yes.
Because, and this is actually current research, they have actually shown that hyaluronic acid, while it is theoretically too big to penetrate.
Yes.
And by the way, I'll back up and say a typical rule of thumb is 500 Dalton, the size of a molecule that can penetrate into this epidermis, through the epidermis, and getting into the dermis.
Right.
To make that path, which is a which is a long and arduous path.
Right.
Difficult.
Yeah.
There are many factors, and we can go into some of those. But for this particular example, so hyaluronic acid is larger than 500 Daltons.
Right.
By the way, if you want to look and see what size molecules are, like vitamin C or lactic acid or something, you could easily Google that and say, what is the molecular weight of
Blank.
Yeah. And a Dalton is equal to grams per mole. So it's the same. So a lot of times molecular weight will be like 200 grams per mole or something like that. That's 200 Daltons, just to give you an example.
Got it.
Anything under 500 Daltons is going to penetrate. So that's a really good sort of something if you wanted to research and kind of see, well, does this ingredient really penetrate? That's a good one way to find out. Now, does that make sense?
Yeah, completely makes sense.
So now hyaluronic acid is a really interesting case. Okay. First of all, there are different sizes of hyaluronic acid.
Right.
So they have hydrolyzed hyaluronic acid, which is, hyaluronic acid is a complex sugar. And typically it's about, 1 million Daltons or more.
Okay.
And that will just sit on the skin surface.
Right.
In theory.
Yes. Where it gets wiped away.
Yeah.
Right?
And that serves, it does serve to draw water to the skin.
Right.
It serves in some ways as an occlusive, depending on what else you're using with it. It serves an occlusive agent, so it keeps the skin soft and moisturized, and it really does a great job of doing that. Hydrolyzed hyaluronic acid that's been cut up into little pieces, they've shown that can penetrate the skin.
Okay.
And it can actually go down through the epidermis and start to affect collagen production, actually, and some hyaluronic acid production and all that. So that's some really interesting research. I'm going to make it a little bit more complicated.
Yay!
Because there is also really interesting study that showed that even the larger hyaluronic acid penetrates.
Like 50,000 Daltons, that kind of thing?
Penetrates.
Okay.
And it's kind of an anomaly. And they're hypothesizing that it is about stereochemistry. So it has a way of interacting with the cells in a different way that allows it to percolate down. So that's a really interesting case.
So it doesn't go straight down. It kind of like
sinewy.
As the it's like a chemical dance.
Exactly.
Right? And then it can get down.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So that's how it is with a lot of these things. There's
like
typically
peptides,
not a black and white answer, but
Right.
hyaluronic acid is really, really an interesting case.
Right.
And I think they're still learning more about it.
Well, I mean, that's the broader conversation. When we apply hyaluronic acid to our skin, is it just really sitting on the surface, or is it actually doing something? And it's the same concept as collagen or peptides. Things that are that are naturally occurring in skin.
Yep.
Can we apply them, and do they actually do anything for the skin? Stem cells, all of those things.
Right.
There's huge questions about, should I buy a, $150 peptide serum and it's loaded with peptides and stem cells and all this stuff, and is it just nonsense?
Yeah.
I think about that.
Yeah,
I really think about
I do
that.
too. I do too. And some, peptides are a really interesting case here. And I'll go back and say a very easy case, and that's collagen.
Okay.
So collagen is, a protein, a fairly big protein. We've got it in our skin. But there is really a misnomer about collagen being, in its larger form applied to the skin and replenishing the
collagen that's missing.
That's just not going to happen.
No.
So that particular protein it stays on the surface. It would be a moisturizer.
Right. It still has benefits for the skin.
Yeah.
But they're not related to collagen.
That's correct.
Yes.
It won't really penetrate. It's like, sometimes I hear it's like throwing bricks at a brick wall and thinking that the bricks are going to get, repaired by that. And
Right.
you just won't.
Yeah. That's a good analogy.
Yeah. So collagen's actually a really easy answer. Now, peptides are an interesting ingredient because peptides are for sure, most of them are too large to penetrate.
Right.
Unless you have the very tiny ones, like 1 or 2 base pairs or three base pairs of a peptide you could get through, but a bigger peptide won't penetrate, but they still work.
Right.
And
they still perform a benefit for the skin.
Exactly.
Yes.
In clinicals, they do show that they perform benefits for the skin.
Mm-hmm. Just in the very top layer.
And the benefits are happening in the dermis.
Oh.
Like collagen production or it's stimulating things.
Right.
And the theory, the way that these peptides work is they're communication molecules.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't need penetration for them to affect those deeper layers.
So they're sitting up in here.
They're sitting up in here.
And they're doing what?
And they're communicating with cells.
Like alien life forms.
Exactly. They're sending a communication.
Wow.
And the cells, our own cells, gather that, and then it creates a cascade of communication and starts to move down and affect other parts of the skin.
That's fascinating.
So they're cell communicators,
yeah.
and they work in a different way. So
right.
we don't think of, that's what's interesting about this. Not all molecules interact physically with things.
Right.
Some are cascade or cell communication ingredients.
Yeah.
So those work with lock and key, and
So that's super interesting. So they're not a complete waste. They actually are performing a different benefit in the skin than we think that they do. The same with collagen. Hyaluronic acid may be a bit different, but the example of stem cells comes to mind. Mm-hmm. There's a perception out there that you buy a product, a super expensive product with stem cells, it's somehow going to stimulate the development of youthful skin. Mm-hmm. When in fact it's probably not doing that at all, right? I look at stem cells, they're not a waste. They have a benefit on the skin. Mm-hmm. They're terrific antioxidants, right? Apple stem cells is a great antioxidant.
Yeah.
You can't get enough antioxidants into your skin. They're just not doing what you think they're doing, but they're still beneficial.
That's right. Well, plant stem cells are, I think that's a whole other thing, but plant stem cells
that's
are
another
actually,
entire conversation in the series.
Those are, I'll just say quickly, those are plant extracts grown in tissue culture. Mm-hmm. And so that's, plant stem cells are those stem cells from a plant. And it's an extract.
Right.
And, but likewise, growth factors and things like that we use on the skin, those are cell communicators. So, they work in different ways, but they're not physically interacting with our stem cells and doing things like.
Yeah. They're doing something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not all, it's on a case-by-case basis as
sure.
well. So some of these things are unique, and others really don't work.
They do nothing. But they may not damage, they just do nothing.
That's right.
Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating. See, guys, this is amazing. This is what it's like here in the Biophile lab. These conversations are going on. This is great. I love this.
I do too. It's really fun. So there are, what else should we talk about, Carmine? Some of the things, why don't we talk a little bit about formulating? So,
sure.
There are different ways what we've talked about already is that we don't necessarily always want things to penetrate. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, the things that penetrate that aren't supposed to penetrate are allergens in the skin.
Right. So let's just back up for a second and talk about why the skin barrier is important and why penetration is inhibited, right? So the whole point of your skin barrier is to prevent things like bacteria and viruses and UV and, all of this stuff from penetrating and damaging the underlying structures of the skin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
So we trick the skin. We trick the skin into allowing things to get through that we think are going to benefit us.
That's right.
But the skin is naturally set up to defend against all of it.
It's an amazing organ. Yeah. I mean, it's just fascinating to look at kind of all of the whole system that the skin, what it is. And it's really a beautiful system.
Yeah.
And it is designed for our protection.
Right.
Everything is designed for our protection. If we couldn't keep our hydration and our water in, we would be
dead.
We would be dead.
Yeah.
But we would be a wrinkled mess. And this top layer of the stratum corneum is really full of mostly lipids and ceramides and all of these things that really seal the skin.
They're occlusive, right?
Of course.
Yes.
So, and it's to protect us obviously from external insults and losing our water, for sure. And then, all the way down that we have macrophages in here. We've got all of our immune system is within the skin as well. Not all of our immune, we have an immune system in the skin,
right.
That protects us. If something gets past that barrier, then we have Langerhans cells and macrophages and things where our immune system will start to take over and take care of that. So when you start to see inflammation, a lot of that inflammatory response is actually an immune response.
Oh, wow.
And it will bring in vasculature, you'll get red, and that will stimulate, that's what's your body's doing what it needs to do to get rid of the insult,
right,
of what has come through. So when we talk
to prevent further damage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when we start to get, and this is the whole concept of inflammaging, is that when we get a lot of inflammation or breaches in the barrier, so many things can happen, a cascade of events happen. And, through our vasculature, these macrophages come in and trying to get at whatever that is the, the problematic situation. And collagen is broken down in that aspect, and you've got oxidation and damage, but that's all part of the repair process as well. So the skin is designed so that nothing can really penetrate.
Right. So that's what you're thinking of, right? When you're formulating a product, you're thinking, how do I get things through that top barrier? What do I want to get through?
Exactly. I think that, from my perspective as a biologist, I think of working, how do I work with the skin to kind of make it its sort of best self, right? How do we work with all those systems to not irritate them, but to promote them, to revitalize them, and to make it work with skin identical ingredients and things that will make the skin even better. So I do think about penetration, ingredients that I use to control that. If and this is the thing, like with formulating, there are different ways to penetrate the skin. First, you can use skin penetration ingredients, the ones that disrupt the barrier,
like.
So some of those
Denatured alcohol.
That's one of them.
Yep.
And by the way, these things can also cause irritation.
Right.
So propylene glycol is one that a lot of
facilitates
people
penetration.
It sure does. Other ones, like what they use for transdermal drug delivery, DMSO, things like that. I mean, these are pretty strong ones, but those will dissolve part of that barrier, right? And it will allow everything to get through.
Wow.
So that's something.
So those kind of ingredients weaken the barrier. Is that what's going on?
They weaken the barrier.
They weaken the barrier to enhance penetration.
Exactly.
And this is why all of this is such an important conversation. So I'm like alcohol, denatured alcohol on my skin is forbidden.
It is so bad.
But companies like big beauty companies out in the formulation labs in New Jersey are, they love to put alcohol in products because alcohol weakens the skin barrier and it allows their complexes and their actives to penetrate so that they can get the kind of result that they want. So they can get those 85% of women saw, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It's all nonsense. But so they damage the skin barrier in order to achieve that. So, you're buying this, $300 anti-aging product, and sure, it's probably going to do something for you, but it's also damaging your skin while it's doing that. So you kind of want to steer clear of things like that.
Yeah, and alcohol is a specific case where it also is stripping away some of your natural oils.
Right.
So, oleic acid's another thing that disrupts the barrier, by the way. Olive oil or something like
pure
that.
Olive oil?
Yeah.
That's why we don't put
omega-9,
pure olive oil on our skin, right?
So omega-9s are actually skin barrier disruptors.
Wow.
So it's really interesting. Not all oils are created equal and build the barrier just because it's an oil. But going back to alcohol, so alcohol, not only disrupts that, but it also, completely strips your skin of its natural oil. So that it does, even more damage. And also, incidentally, just getting things in there and kind of creating a way to push the ingredients in. A lot of those formulas are also pretty dirty. And I'll say that it's something that you want to really be aware of. And what has really bothered me for a while in seeing certain formulas that are created with a bunch of preservatives or chemicals or things that really aren't meant to go deep into the skin. So while they want their active to go in there, you can't control.
Right. What else goes in?
Everything
what else follows it in?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have
all those dirty toxins and irritants.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah. This is why clean beauty is so important.
Right.
I think because when you start to work with penetration and you want to work with that, you have to make sure you've got a clean formula so that it's you can be sure that it's all things that are good.
It's all good for skin and nothing bad for skin.
Yeah.
There's no trade-off.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. I think we are a wrap. Yeah.
Are we?
Yeah. This is incredible. I've been wanting to do this for so long.
Me too, Carmine.
Yay.
Should we tell people how we know each other or not?
Yeah, we can. So, Allison and I worked together at Kiehl's a million years ago, in the 50s. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's true. See how young we are? We're actually very old. But
and so we rediscovered each other in the last 6 months. She founded this brand and I discovered it and I was reading and I was like, Allison Cutland, wait, I know that name. And then of course I remembered the face. But anyway, so
Yep.
We're super excited to be doing this. We're going to do a couple more of them and, just ramble.
Yeah.
Just ramble. So we're going to talk about fermentation maybe next time, whatever. And you guys can drop questions if you want to. And, we'll incorporate some of the answers that we can come up with. And Allison's kind of she's like an encyclopedia of all things skin, you guys.
We can ramble.
She makes me smarter. I feel smarter every time I leave the lab. I'm back on the G train home thinking, ooh, I'm so much smarter.
Oh, Carmine.
All right. Anyway.
Can't wait to do more.
Yeah.
This is great.
Thanks you guys.
See you later.
Thanks, Allison.
Thanks.